Right, now we can commence. A call for the nominations for Mayor, of the election of Mayor for the Council year 2016-17. Councillor Frost.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, may I make an apology to you because I am incorrectly dressed tonight. As you know, we have just moved house and I can't find my past mayor's badge. So that will strike fear into Alison's heart in case she's got to get another one. But it gives me great pleasure tonight to nominate Councillor Christopher Story as the mayor for the new year. In doing this, I find it very difficult to know what to say about Chris. I've got his CV that tells us all about what he's done in council. Well, we all know that, so why am I standing here trying to justify him being mayor? And then I thought, well, we need a bit more than that. We really need to know something about him as a man, with his wife Judith, who's going to be our mayoress. So I said to him, thanks for the CV, but I want something more than that. So he very kindly sent me some other pieces of paper. Now, one of the things he says on the piece of paper is, we love visiting foreign places. That does not include Cranley as a foreign place, or Hazelmere as a foreign place, just because you come from Farnham. Although I would tell you now, Councillor Story, that once you become mayor, you will spend more time in Cranley and Hazelmere than anywhere else. I know Cranley and Hazelmere extremely well. So you will enjoy that. But please, they are not foreign places. But take your passport just in case. You don't like sitting on beaches, you like reading, and you pick up a book wherever you go and you read wherever you go. You did say in this piece of paper you actually read in the car. I hope you're not driving when you read in the car. So it was very interesting, but one thing I found particularly interesting about this second piece of paper about you and Judith is that you are into looking into your family history. And you have had great success with that, so that you now visit family you didn't know you had in America. You won't have time for that during the next year. They've got to come and visit you. But it will be great, and you will actually be a great mayor. I have been with Chris several times in wearing one of my other hats as Mayor of Farnham, and Chris has been there as Deputy Mayor of Waverley, and he has carried it off with poise and with stature, as indeed as our new Mayoress has done as well. So thank you, Chris. I think you've earned the role of Mayor, and I think it's a privilege. I found it a privilege to be Mayor, and it's a privilege you don't get over. So wearing the mayoral chain is something which you must wear with dignity, must wear with pride. But everybody must know that when you stand up in the chamber, they have to shut up and sit down. That's one of the things in the Constitution. So there are little gems that you need to know about. But Chris, it is with great pleasure I ask Council to join with me in nominating you as the Mayor for the year 16-17. Enjoy, and I know you will with Judith by your side. She's a great supporter to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Frost. Councillor Dennis Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last year at this time, I had the pleasure of being Chris's seconder for the office of Deputy Mayor. And what I had to say in support of that nomination at that time was determined by the personal contact we had had during committee and council meetings since 2011, when we were first both elected to the council. Now then, Chris had no direct experience of mayoral work, but almost immediately our mayor, Councillor Mike Band, because of a clash of functions, asked him to deputise for him at the Milford village fete. Chris demonstrated his affability with all the many stallholders and exhibitors, and showed himself to be attentive to people's comments, so he was readily listened to when expressing his own views. It was clear that he made a good impression, and I am sure that this has been repeated during the 12 months since. Now, Chris has been involved in local politics for nearly 45 years, and he brings a wide range of business experience, both here in the UK and abroad, to the office of Mayor. I understand that on one occasion during his lecturing tours, he was invited onto Hungarian television to discuss quality improvement in industry. With such a fascinating subject, I suppose it didn't really matter that he was speaking English, as few would be listening anyway. He has also served as a school governor for 3 Wandsworth schools and at St Peter's Church of England School, Farnham, before becoming Waverley Borough Councillor. He served on Farnham Town Council for 3 years. I think that it can be said that he is dedicated to all things community. He is at ease with people and they with him. Influenced, no doubt, I am sure, from his experiences of many cultures around the world, including Barnsley in Yorkshire, where he was born. So it is now with proven experience that I am delighted to second his name for our next mayor, and from my perspective, there can be no doubt he will be a first-class mayor for the borough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Are there any other nominations? Would anybody else like to speak? Councillor Williamson.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor, for the opportunity of speaking this evening. It's very difficult for me because I think this is the first time in this chamber I can't find anything to object to. I believe that Chris is an ideal candidate, and although I didn't know him before joining the council last year, I've sat with him on the joint planning and the Western planning meeting. Sometimes we sit next to each other. And I've found him to be both thoughtful and balanced in his comment. And he's very much his own man in his decision making. I'm sure that Chris will bring these same qualities to bear in the position of mayor. I know that Chris is very popular amongst the electorate in Bagshot-Lee. And although I tried to get, in good best man tradition, some embarrassing stories to tell this evening, his friends were particularly tight-lipped and didn't tell me anything at all. Now, this leads me to believe that either Chris has a very clean record and nothing to disclose, or he's got great loyalty from his friends and his colleagues. Whichever is the case, doesn't really matter, since they're both admirable qualities which will stand him in really good stead. I know that there are many changes in the council this coming year, and it gives us hope that Chris, at the helm of the moral compass of the council, we can look forward to a period of open debate and transparency. I'd like to wish Chris and his family a very successful and enjoyable year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Councillor MacLeod.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As the one independent member of the council, I would also like to endorse Chris's appointment as mayor. Of course, he's a Farnham councillor, which is always a plus point as far as I'm concerned. Also, as a new councillor, I also served on the Joint Planning Committee and the Western Planning Committee alongside Chris. And I think he's got all the personal qualities required to make a good mayor. I've found him always to be a very helpful, approachable person with a friendly, open personality, which has been very helpful to me as a new member. So I also wish him every success in the coming year as a mayor. I found on the planning committee, we often find ourselves voting the same way. So as far as I'm concerned, he's also a person of very good judgment. So, so let me just leave it at that and wish Chris every success in his coming year as a mayor. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor MacLeod. Anybody else like to speak? If not, then is Chris Story's nomination agreed? Agreed. I therefore duly declare that Chris Story as the new mayor for Waverley for the year 2016-17. Congratulations.
Please rise whilst the Mayor-elect leaves the chamber. Past mayors, mayoresses and consorts, councillors and guests, there will now be a short 5-minute break whilst the mayor robes. Past mayors, mayoresses and consorts, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, please rise to receive the new Mayor of Waverley, Councillor Chris Story.
I will now make my declaration of acceptance of office. I, Christopher Story, having been elected to the office of Mayor for the Borough of Waverley, hereby declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability. I undertake to observe the code as to the conduct which is expected of members of Waverley Borough Council in the performance of my functions in that office. Please be seated. Good evening, members, officers, members of the public. I was going to say it's an honour and a privilege to be made Mayor of Waverley. But my wife said to me, everybody says that. Can't you find something else? So I got out the thesaurus and I looked and I looked and I can't find anything better. So it's an honour and a privilege to be your new mayor. I'd like to thank my proposer and seconder and also the leader of the opposition party and our independent councillor for their kind words. I didn't think that Cranley was a foreign part. Mike has been very kind in giving me some of his duties when there were clashes, and they all seem to be in Cranley. So I've found my way there. I've found my way to Hindhead, lovely operatic society in Hindhead, and I'm looking forward to being around in the borough many times in the next year. I'd like to thank Mike Band for leading by example in the last year and passing on to me all those interesting visits, including a royal visit just in the last month, which I enjoyed very much. As you may imagine, there's been quite a kerfuffle in the Story household in the last few weeks, preparing for this coming year. Got new shoes for the mayoress. Got new hats for the mayoress. Got new handbags for the mayoress. You get the picture. I expected to come home one day and find our cat dressed up in a tricorn hat, a sword and knee boots. But no. I did get a new suit, and the councillor provided this lovely red outfit. I understand that it was modelled on what a well-to-do London merchant would have worn when this council was formed in 1974. Actually, in 1974, art students at the local college would probably have been quite happy wearing this sort of thing. Seems to be what mostly people did. I've discovered during the last year that people expect the deputy mayor, and no doubt they will expect the mayor, to know everything there is to know about the borough. So, of course, I've had to look things up to make sure I've got the information at my fingertips. And so, population, about 125,000 people. Area, 345 square kilometres, about 133 square miles. Where did I get the information? Well, of course, the best place where you get all information, Wikipedia. It's I had a lovely story to tell about Wikipedia and its accuracy, which is that when I looked it up, it said that the mayor of Waverley is a certain Tony Gordon-Smith. However, I checked again today and it's gone. They've expunged all reference to the mayor, so there goes my chance of glory. Mind you, Wikipedia is bang up to date. It says that the last election for the council here was 2011. So we've got 125,000 people. And those 125,000 people, none of them live in Waverley. You ask anybody, where do you live? I live in Farnham. I live in Godalming. I live in Cranley, the end of the universe. Nobody lives in Waverley. And nobody thinks of themselves as being a Waverley inhabitant. And if you ask people outside of this area, where is Waverley, you'll probably find that most people think it's in Scotland. Borough of Edinburgh or something like that. Last year, Mike said he intended to be an ambassador for Waverley, to do what he could to bring Waverley together. And I think he made a great job of that, and it still needs more work doing. And in the Constitution, 5.03, if you're interested over that side, it says one of the activities of the mayor is to promote public involvement. And I want to make that my watchword for the coming year, is to try and involve people in Waverley. People, too many of them see Waverley in an entirely negative way. They involved solely through planning and objecting to the housing that might be coming into their neighbourhood or whatever it might be. And I want to try and put a positive message across to the people of Waverley, and I intend to try and arrange some activities which will bring people together. I want to make Waverley visible. I also want to remember that we often talk about the 4 urban areas in Waverley and the importance of those, but more than a third of the population of Waverley doesn't live in those 4 urban areas. It lives in all the other parishes and villages, and so I want to get them involved in Waverley as well. So that is everything that I want to say at this stage, except again to say thank you to all of you for voting me as mayor for the coming year. Mr. Taylor, are there any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have received apologies from councillors Paddy Blagden, Brian and Patricia Ellis, Michael Goodridge, Jill Hargreaves, Libby Piper, Jeanette and Stuart Stennett, and Bob Upton.
Thank you. It gives me great pleasure to call for nominations for the appointment of Deputy Mayor. Councillor Carol King.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And may I be the very first to congratulate you on your appointment of Mayor in this great borough. and I'm sure that you and Judith will have a wonderful year. Look forward to that. Mr Mayor, it gives me great pleasure to propose Councillor Simon Inchbald as Deputy Mayor for the coming council year. It's a bit strange really, because like you, or Councillor Frost rather, when she was trying to research facts for you, I had the same problem with Councillor Inchbald, so we're going to have quite an interesting year. It was very difficult to try and find the juicy bits. There were none there, nothing. So I've had to resort to a very simple talk about the man, because that's the only thing that I know that I can talk about. Simon has been a member of this council for the past 9 years, and during this time he's been engaged in supporting the local community through his involvement at the time with the Citizens Advice Bureau, the Meath here in Godalming, and various other organisations. He's also a member of the Royal British Legion, but I suspect this may be something to do with the fact that his local branch meets in the village pub rather than any past military connection. Simon is brilliant at helping those in need of support. As portfolio holder for housing, I see his firm and fair approach to solving his residents' often complex housing issues. He's tenacious, he's full of common sense, has a wry sense of humour, and is much liked by colleagues and officers alike. Supported by Rosie, I believe Simon will be a great Deputy Mayor of our borough. I trust that members will agree with me. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor King. Councillor Isherwood.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. May I also congratulate you on your appointment as our Mayor for the coming year. I wish to second the nomination of Councillor Simon Newbold to the position of Deputy Mayor for the council year 2016-17. Simon has asked me to keep this brief, as he has sanitised the records of his life prior to Waverley. At least there's little to learn from a scan of Google. Therefore, this will be brief. It's easy. That said, though, he attended Downside in Somerset, a rival to my own school, but I fear I left school many years before he arrived there. Simon's career commenced with a spell in advertising before he moved into investment banking. He's been a councillor here for 9 years and demonstrated a depth of knowledge, understanding in many areas, but in particular in planning and licensing. The latter he's chaired with wisdom and fairness. Councillor Newbold is really an outstanding ward councillor who puts a great deal of time and effort into that role, working with people, for people. His interests outside council work are recorded as golf, music, gardening and reading. He fails to mention the fifth interest, which oddly enough fits in with the other four quite snugly. That's his partial to a small glass of red wine. It fits in with all those four, but it's only for medicinal purposes, I'm sure. May I strongly support the nomination of Councillor Simon Newbold for the position of Deputy Mayor for Waverley 2016-17. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Isherwood. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Are there any other nominations? In that case, is it agreed that Simon Inchbald be the Deputy Mayor for the coming year? Agreed. Thank you very much. I will now invest the new Deputy Mayor, the Mayoress and one or two others from in front of the dais. I now ask the Deputy Mayor to make his declaration of acceptance of office.
I hereby declare that I, Simon Inchbald, having been elected to the office of Deputy Mayor for the Borough of Waverley, hereby declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability. I undertake to observe the code as to the conduct which is expected of members of Waverley Borough Council in the performance of my functions in that office. The 12th? 10th. Mr. Mayor, fellow councillors, members of the public. Members, thank you very much for electing me to the office of Deputy Mayor. I will do my very best to behave myself. I would like to give the same assurance on behalf of my wife, but I fear that might be giving too great a hostage to fortune. Councillor King, I'm not surprised you couldn't find out much about me. The records are held offshore in an office in Panama. I would like to thank my proposer and seconder very much for their words about me. Obviously, they were written with rose-tinted glasses on. I've asked them to be brief. I'm going to be brief. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We now come to the vote of thanks to the retiring Mayor, which she's got a lot to do this evening, is going to be moved by Councillor Pat Frost. Councillor Frost.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Mayor, and congratulations on taking office. I'm sure you'll have a great year. It's terribly difficult. I mean, I was with some councillors last night, and they said to me, "You seem to have a lot to do tomorrow, Pat. You will be there, won't you?" And I said, "Of course I'll be there." It was a close thing tonight. It was a close call, I'll tell you. However, Mike, we have known each other for a very long time. I've always had a great respect for you, and that respect has grown during your year as Mayor. You have been a fantastic Mayor. You have held office with dignity and a bit of fun. And again, wearing my other hat, our paths seem to cross quite a lot. And when we don't expect to see each other, suddenly we're seeing each other every evening. Now, one of the things that mayors don't have to do, because it's not in the job description, but is expected, is to in fact support a charity of your choice. And Mike, you have been outstanding in your charitable works and the money that you have raised for Dan's fund, and I can't remember the other one, but never mind. But it has been outstanding, and the events have always been fun, and they have been great. But you have brought something else to the office of Mayor. I've already mentioned dignity, but it is also knowledge and understanding of the borough and what it means to hold what I consider to be high office in this borough, because you, apart from the Lord Lieutenant, are the representative of the Queen, and you have performed that duty very well indeed during your time as Mayor. But you have been ably supported by Val, and our paths seem to cross quite a lot of the time, Val, and that has been absolutely fantastic. So to you and to Val, because I think being Mayor is a team job. It's not just I'm Mayor, it is a team. It is the Mayor and Mayoress or Mayor and Consort who together are ambassadors for this borough and who in fact carry high office on their shoulders. You don't always find it easy, There will be times when I know there have been times when you found it difficult, but you have been fabulous. And I am delighted to have been asked to thank you from the bottom of my heart, on behalf of all of us here, for the hard work you put in. Thank you.
This will now be seconded by Councillor Morris Byam.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and may I also congratulate you. I hope you enjoy your year as much as I enjoyed my year, well, concluding 8 years ago, starting 9 years ago. I didn't have a head start. I didn't do a deputy mayor's year, which I missed, I felt. So hopefully that preparation will make you a better mayor than I was, although I hope I stood my ground very well. But I'm here today to say thanks and congratulations to Mike Band. We first met 13 years ago when we became elected, and we spent the next 4 years in a rather tight opposition, working hard for the borough. And as I said, 9 years ago, the Conservative group won the election. I became mayor. The deputy mayor at that stage had lost his seat, unfortunately, so I was pushed into the position, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Mike, at that point, took a great different route, that of finance, and spent so much time setting up our finances, established them as being second to none in the country, I think, and working hard all the way through the Star Chamber process, etc. We worked so hard in trying to achieve what we have achieved from a financial point of view, with so many stringent constraints on us from the government, etc. So you've done extremely well. And then you decided now is time to take a little bit of a break. You became deputy mayor and spent a little bit more time with Val. All that period of time when you were on finance, I'm sure she saw very little of you, certainly during the daytime, but you did that so well, and you came in to be mayor. As Pat has said, you had your 2 charities to work for, but you also, I'm sure, worked hard with all of the other charities that we have, the superb numbers of charities that we have and volunteers that we have within this borough is great, and I'm sure that you supported all of those. In the times that I was with you and saw you working with them, they were all very good. And I saw your caring side as well. He cared for me when we were doing the Green Sands walk, and he saw me struggling up the hill. I didn't expect to be struggling, but I was, and he came back to find me and make sure I was okay. Didn't actually hold my elbow, but he was nearly going to do that, I think. He saw me struggling away. It was a superb effort. You did it 2 weekends on the trot. Was it 2 weekends on the trot? Certainly twice, the two separate lengths. And that, I hope, raised a good amount of money, but all the other things, the concerts and everything else, have done superbly. You're so well respected in the borough. I hope that you enjoy your sort of retirement, and we look forward to seeing what you're going to do next. So thank you very much for a very good year.
Before I call upon Councillor Band, is there anyone else who would like to speak? Okay. Councillor Band.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and may I add my congratulations to your appointment, and thank you also together with the other proposers and seconders for their kind words. I can't find any other words either than you for honour and privilege, but it really is an honour and a privilege to serve as your mayor for the year. And as my predecessors know only too well, events come thick and fast. We got thrown in the deep end, a very nice deep end, I have to say, going to the Magna Carta anniversary celebrations at Runnymede, rapidly followed by opening a bug hotel at Beacon Hill Primary School. And it's continued in that sort of vein right the way through to the last weekend. On Sunday, we were in Guildford, processing up the High Street in the new Mayor of Guildford's civic service, and yesterday I had the pleasure of welcoming Dan Ely to his new home purpose-built home in our Station Road complex in Godalming. In between, some over 400 events and things that Val and I have been to supporting you in Waverley over the year. It wouldn't be possible to do these number of events without being supported, more than ably supported, by my deputy Chris and by the immediate past mayor Liz, because I'm afraid the events as they came meant we were triple booked on occasions, and thank you both from the bottom of my heart for the work which you have done in supporting my mayoral year. But also a big thank you, I think, to the town mayors and town chairmen, because really we act as a group in Waverley. Waverley, as Chris has ably demonstrated, is a huge borough geographically, has the 5 varying conurbations, the urban conurbations, and as Chris rightly pointed out, the rural conurbation. And it is a huge area to cover. And so the town mayors and the town chairmen do play a really vital role in what we do in mayoral functions across the borough. As Chris has pointed out, and he has shared in one in particular, we've had royal visits, which I've attended as your representative. I welcomed the new Lord Lieutenant, Michael Moore-Molyneux, of course, is a great friend of Waverley, and many of us have known him well for years. I've attended High Sheriff Award events. We've worked closely with our local regiment, the Princess of Wales Royal Regiment, but also with their cadets, and not just the Army cadets, but the Sea Cadets and the Air Cadets, St John's Ambulance Cadets and Scouts. We've been there, and it's great to see the young people actually taking up and participating in these cadet events, because when you see them, you really realise what enjoyment they get, but what self-confidence they gain, and how they are able to disport themselves. And I think it's something to be greatly encouraged, whether they're interested in a military career or not. I think the fact they participate is the great thing. I've been asked to give talks about the mayoralty, both in and out of the borough. But above all, I've been conscious of the volunteering that goes in the borough, the huge numbers of societies, organisations which depend on volunteers, on which really the life in our borough also depends. So I've been very proud to be attending when, on 3 occasions, the Queen's Award for Voluntary Service has actually been presented to our voluntary organisations. I've also been, and it's typical of the volunteers, been presenting long service awards, not just the 10 and 25 years, but the 45 years awards. And on one occasion, 3 ladies received from me a 50-year service award. And it just shows the extent which we depend on volunteering in the borough. I've shared I've visited, not shared, the wrong word, attended a lady's 105th birthday party. 5 generations of her family were there, including her first great-great-grandchild. For those who don't know, when you're 105, you get your second signed portrait from the Queen. So that was an interesting occasion. Fundraising that you've been kind enough to mention, Dan's Fund for Burns and the other charities, was the Surrey Hills Trust Fund. For the events, we had a sponsored walk, we've had the Christmas fair, we've had the ball, the concert, and with your support, we've raised well over £40,000 for these charities. It is a tremendous achievement, and I know, as well as the money, perhaps the most important thing from my perspective is their profile in the borough has been raised. People are much more aware of the charities, and it's interesting to see that particularly the Surrey Hills Trust Fund, other mayors and chairmen in the new coming year are all picking up the baton and running on with that charity as well. So I'm pleased to see we've started something. None of this would have been possible. None of the mayor's activities would be possible without the backup support. Waverley officers have been particularly encouraging, giving me briefing notes, guidance, and their support and enthusiasm for what the Mayor of Waverley has been doing this last year has been fantastic. And I thank them all from the bottom of my heart. Not just the officers. I have to say our print room has been involved, printing programmes and tickets very often against deadlines. Our canteen staff have been preparing teas and lunches for Mayor's functions. They've all responded to the mayoral challenge fantastically. And I really sincerely thank them all, because without them, the Mayor's function does not work. We then come to my chaplain, Sally. Without her support and encouragement, I'm not sure how we'd have got through the year. Alison, my PA, who's absolutely fantastic, help and guide, an amazing person. I don't think any mayor could work in Waverley without the information and guidance coming from Alison. And finally, but by no means least, my wife Val, who's been an amazing mayoress. I hope she's enjoyed the year as much as I have, but I think the three of them together have really had to work quite hard to keep me on the straight and narrow, to get me to the various appointments on time, suitably attired and suitably briefed. By and large, they managed. One or two things, but I didn't read the instructions properly, but that's my fault, not theirs. So thank you really so much for all you have done in supporting me during the mayoral year. It's a wonderful borough, and this is being a mayor really just shows you what a wonderful borough it is and how important it is we all work together to maintain and enhance what we have got. And so I congratulate Chris again, and I congratulate Chris and Judith, and I'm sure they're looking forward to a busy year, but a successful year, and I wish you well for the forthcoming year. Thank you. Now, a few little tokens of thanks to give to these ladies. So can I get the chaplain first, perhaps? Sally? Thank you for all you have.
I'm so glad I trust with you.
Whoops, don't go away. Don't go away. Thank you, Sally, so much for all you do. It's been wonderful having you here, and I think it's the first time in my 12 years we've had a chaplain who's always stayed right the way through the council meetings. Fantastic. Lovely.
So interesting.
Alison, we find a little present for you. Once again, Alison, thank you so much for all you do. You're behind the scenes, but you really do an amazing job in supporting us. Thank you so much. There we are. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Band. We move on to item 7 of the agenda. Can I confirm the minutes of the council meeting which took place on the 19th of April 2016?
Agreed.
Thank you. I'll sign those later. Item 8, Mayor's announcements. I think I'll stand. Well, I remember in all of the council meetings that I've attended in the last year, the first thing that the Mayor has always said is what sort of activities he's undertaken since the last time. So, since I was elected, I've undertaken one activity. I'm still doing it. My second card says congratulations to David Munro. Well, we did that earlier, but congratulations from me personally, David. I'd also like to mention a long-serving officer of this council who is retiring next month, and I personally have found him to be a great guide to making sure that I do the right things and don't do any of the wrong things, and I know that he keeps everybody here on the same straight and narrow. So can we have a round of applause, please, for Robin Pello? My chaplain for the coming year will be the Reverend Alan Crawley, who is responsible with his wife Leslie for quite a few churches in the north of Farnham, but in particular, since it's my ward, the St George's Church in Badshot-Lee, and it's at that church which the civic service will be held this year, and I'm looking forward to as many of you as possible coming along to that. It's on July the 10th at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And if you don't know where Badshot-Lee is, I know it's a long way from Cranley, but I'm looking forward to seeing you. My charities for this year are both quite close to my heart. The first is local to where we live in Farnham, and it's an organisation called Change of Scene. I've known the person that runs Change of Scene for a very long time, and what Change of Scene is about, they look for those children who've been excluded from school. Surrey County Council's education people nominate them to come along to Change of Scene, and there they get involved with all sorts of practical activities. They learn to look after animals. Change of Scene has a flock of alpaca, goats, sheep, pigs, chickens, horses, tortoises, snakes, all kinds of different animals which the children learn how to look after. They learn horticulture. There are greenhouses, they learn how to grow fruit, and then they learn how to process that fruit by having cooking lessons. And also there is a carpenter who comes along voluntarily, and anything that needs doing within the Change of Scene premises, a new style, a new pen. The last thing I saw them making was a milking stall for the goat, and the carpenter does all the sharp bits with the saw, and then the kids assemble the items. So they learn self-reliance and they learn self-respect, and many of them have gone on at the end of their time to Merristwood College, where they've come out with a qualification that's set them up for the rest of their lives. My second charity is the Royal Surrey County Hospital. Those of you who were in the last council will probably remember that for about 6 months I wasn't here. And the reason I wasn't here is that my diabetes, I had a complication with the diabetes, and I ended up having an amputation within my left foot, and I learnt in the course of my stay in the Royal Surrey the dedication with which the doctors, nurses, support staff deal with the people who are in their care. And so specifically, because I wanted to be supporting those parts of the hospital which supported me, my charity is going to be raising funds for the activities in the Cedar Centre, which deals with diabetes, and which it will be related to orthopaedics. So we will be producing money to make life easier for people like me with problems with their feet and diabetes. My last announcement is that after this meeting you are of course all invited to the Borough Hall, where there is some sort of food. I haven't seen what it is yet, but I'm sure it'll be very good. Thank you. Item 9. The election of the leader of this council. Can I call for nominations for leader of the council for the period 2016 to 2019, please? I believe Councillor Peter Martin is going to propose.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and may I also congratulate you on your election and installation as our Mayor, and wish you and Judith every success and happiness in your year of office. Mr. Mayor, a further election of great importance to this council tonight is that of a new leader. But before proceeding with that, perhaps I might be permitted through you and on behalf of us all to thank the outgoing leader for many years of sterling and tireless service to this council, and most particularly as its leader over the last 6 years.
Hear, hear.
Yeah. It takes courage and fortitude to be a leader of a local authority over so long a period. And in courage and fortitude, Robert Knowles has no shortage. Thank you, Robert. But I am delighted, and indeed it is an honour and a privilege, Mr. Mayor, to have the opportunity at this annual meeting to propose Councillor Julia Potts as the new leader of this council. What are the qualities that we would seek in a new leader? Clearly, in my view, we need someone of vision and of enterprise, someone who will lead a good team, someone who gets things done, someone who listens and communicates, someone who can bring people together in this council and who will work smartly with partners and other councils. Someone who will take on tough and complex issues and bring them to a successful conclusion. Someone with good judgment, who is positive and has a real can-do approach. Someone who is approachable and yet who is clearly the leader. That's a formidable list, but I believe there is one amongst us tonight who measures up extraordinarily well to those qualities and attributes, and that person is Councillor Julia Potts. Julia was first elected to this council in May 2011, representing the Farnham Upper Hale ward. She joined the executive just 8 months later and then became deputy leader in May 2014, just 3 years after being elected to the council. She is, Mr. Mayor, mostly a Surrey girl. She was actually born in Wimbledon, although that now sadly is only part of historic Surrey. She was raised in East Grinstead, just over the border in Sussex, but she went to school in Lingfield in Surrey. Apparently, and here I have a little anecdote, she was often in trouble at school for talking. A fine attribute for a leader. But she enjoyed skiing and swimming and many other things too. She started her political life by joining the Conservative Party in Chelsea in 1985, when she was still just in her teens and during the heady days of Mrs. Thatcher. She lived in Sloane Gardens. My question then is, does that make her a Sloane Ranger? Debate. She moved to Surrey to live in 1988 and then finally, and not via Cranley, to Farnham in 1997, where she has since lived. Her professional career was and is in the world of beauty care with Max Factor, Procter & Gamble and Coty. And she then set up her own business some 10 years ago, specialising in sales training and HR consultancy within the health, beauty care and retail industry. So, Mr. Mayor, I warmly commend Julia to this council as a person
with a great background of enterprise, vigour and experience. Above all, she will be a positive and forward-looking leader. We are surely in politics to get things done. Julia is a woman who gets things done. And so it gives me great pleasure to propose Councillor Julia Potts for the position of leader of this council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I call upon Councillor Coburn to second.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and congratulations. I don't intend, you'll all be glad to know, to add much to Peter's eloquent words, which were actually refreshingly brief, I felt, for Peter. So, I thought I would just offer Julia a quote on leadership from Mark Twain, which might come in use. Mark Twain, so wise, always do right, he says. It will gratify some people and astonish the rest. So I've no hesitation in seconding Peter's proposal for Julia as our leader, and I wish her several astonishing months and years to come. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. With great pleasure, I second the nomination.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? In that case, I hereby announce that Councillor Julia Potts is leader of the council for the period 2016 to 2019. Item 10, appointment of executive and deputy leader. Leader?
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. And firstly, on behalf of all councillors present, may I too offer my congratulations to you on your appointment this evening. Before I introduce the executive for the year coming and also my deputy, I'd just myself like to say a few words and take this opportunity once again to thank Councillor Robert Knowles for his leadership over the last 6 years. Councillor Knowles has devoted his entire adult life to the service of our community in Waverley. Firstly, as a police officer in the Waverley area, and latterly as a Waverley Borough Councillor, and also as leader of this council during the past 6 years. And I think that everyone will join with me tonight, regardless of their political persuasion, in that should really be reflected upon and acknowledged. So Robert, yet again, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Crucially, as Peter has already mentioned, during his time as leader, this Conservative Council has really responded well under his leadership to a number of reductions in government grant and other challenges that have come our way. And throughout, under Robert's leadership, we have managed to maintain all our frontline services to the community. And that is absolutely crucial and should not be forgotten. And as I say, that is under Robert's leadership. We're very lucky in that we'll continue to have his experience with us from the backbenchers and indeed on our licensing committee. So I look forward to continuing to work with Robert and again being able to lean upon him at times and again for his wise counsel. So on behalf of the administration, I'd like to thank him for the valuable contribution that he's made. And I also have a small gift, a token gift, I may say. I'm sure Robert won't mind me saying that he likes to partake in a single glass, a single malt whiskey in the evenings. So, Robert, from us all, there we are.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
go now.
Just a few more minutes. I'll keep it very brief. I promise it won't be as long as Peter Martin. So, Mr. Mayor, without further ado, if I may move to the appointment of the Deputy Leader, who is Councillor Tom Martin, and that can be found detailed on pages 11 to 12 of the agenda, and to the appointments also of the Executive for 2016-17, which can also be found on pages 11 to 12 of the agenda, and I commend those to Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. We now come to item 11, which is the I take what people are saying. I haven't got that on my script, but are we agreed with? Thank you. Appointment to committees. Leader.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. And item 11 details the appointments to the committees for, again, the year 2016-17. And it is important for members to note that I confirm that the terms of reference for those committees remain unchanged. The committees are as laid out in the papers, and I believe I have a seconder.
I'm happy to second, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so the recommendation, which is given under item 11, first recommendation, which is for everyone here, is that agreed?
Agreed.
And the second recommendation, which is for licensing members only, is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. I now declare this meeting closed. Please may I invite my guests to join me in the Borough Hall, followed by my fellow councillors.
Please rise whilst the Mayor leaves the chamber. Please remain in the chamber for a few minutes until the Mayor is ready to receive you in the Borough Hall. Thank you.